All right, I'm going to begin. Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. I appreciate y'all showing up and attending. Today we're going to talk about cybersecurity and cybersecurity prevention. My name is Mark Green. I'm co-owner and managing partner for Stryker Networks. For those of you who don't know who Stryker Networks is a MSP or managed services IT provider for small to mid-sized companies throughout the United States, providing full line of IT services. We also specialize in preventing cyber crime. We also focus on compliance and compliance testing and compliance alignment the best that we can. So today we're going to talk about certain events that happened in recent times. So my goal, my purpose of the webinar is right here. We're going to talk about the cause of the shutdown of the fuel delivery for the Eastern Seaboard with the Colonial Pipeline. We're going to talk about why did it take 5 days for the Colonial Pipeline to come back online. We're also going to talk about how you can minimize your risk of a cyber attack. We're going to talk a little bit about if you have cyber insurance, which most companies do, what are the things that you need to do to make sure that you don't avoid your policy, so that you make sure that you get the full payment and payout if there were to happen to be an attack. We're also going to talk about the number one security threat that you face as a company that has nothing to do with antivirus, firewalls, or any other security protocols that you have in place. There's one area that you need to focus on that most people don't think of, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. So let's get to the Colonial Pipeline, the cyber attack, and what happened there. So let's just go through what transpired in that. So hackers were able to gain access to the Colonial Pipeline on April 29th this year through a virtual private network, which a virtual private network allows employees to remotely access a network remotely. It gives them full access into the network as if they took their network cable, drug it all the way to their house, plugged it in, and gave them access. What they found out is the VPN, or the virtual private network account that was set up, was no longer in use at the time when the hackers used it, but it was still valid where the hackers could come in and access the network through that account that was no longer valid. They also found out that the VPN user account's password was discovered after the fact, available for sale on the dark web. And we're going to talk about the dark web in just a little bit. It also means that the Colonial Pipeline's employees may have used that same password for other access within the network, within the Colonial Pipeline overall network. And so for use for other attacks. So we're going to talk about that as well. Here's interesting. It says, it's a little more than a week later, on May 7th, that's when the Colonial Pipeline's IT department realized that there was a problem. So what happens is they had a pop-up screen that demanded ransomware around 5 a.m. in the morning on the 7th. What that means is that they're letting everybody know that all your files are encrypted. They're no longer available, no longer in use, and now you have to pay a ransom to get a decryption key to come in and decrypt everything. And it's interesting, this is the first time they've ever had an entire shutdown of its gasoline pipeline within the 57-year history of the company. It's the first time. It also didn't take too long for that shutdown information to spread, because when you shut down the gas distribution throughout the whole Eastern Seaboard, you're going to get some public news, which is damaging to the reputation of the Colonial Pipeline Company, right? And that company transports, what does it say here, roughly about 2.5 million barrels of fuel a day up and down the Eastern Seaboard, right? So the Colonial decided to pay the hackers, which, by the way, they found out was a Russian-linked cybercrime unit known as DarkSide. They paid them $4.5 million in ransom shortly after the attack, which is a lot of money, right? So let's take this a little bit further. So the hackers also stole nearly 100 gigabits of data. Now, if you ask me, I'm guessing it was probably a lot more than that, but that's what the press, and that's what they released to the press to say, hey, they now have 100 gigabits of our data, and they threatened that if you don't pay the ransom, we're going to put that information to be sold on the dark web. But what's interesting is, and this is something that's new, and you need to pay attention to this, federal authorities were able to recover $2 million of the $4.2 million in cryptocurrency that they paid for the ransom. And it was led by a group that was newly formed, because they're looking at those type of attacks and those type of hacks as if they were the same thing as foreign invaders into our country, or if they are, looking at taking down our country's infrastructure. And they're out there doing this for two reasons. One's for money, and the second is to see how they can cripple the United States. So they were able to seize about the $2 million of cryptocurrency. The seizure of the funds that the Colonial Pipeline paid to the Russian group, again, DarkSide, was the first time that any ransomware was ever recovered that was paid out. And that was done because the Justice Department has a new task force designed to specifically do that. And what they're doing is they're looking at it as if it's an attack on our country. What's interesting is what's looming and what's out there in Congress as far as the law, they're looking at potentially passing a law that makes it illegal for U.S. companies to ever pay any ransomware to cyber criminals. So that's an interesting twist, because what happens is when you pay the ransomware, they send you decryption keys to decrypt all your data so that your data gets fully recovered. The reason it took the Colonial Pipeline so many days, 5 days, a full week plus, to get everything back up and running is that the decryption key that were sent to them after they paid that $4.2 or $4.4 million in ransom didn't work all the way. So they were able to recover some of the data, and some of it they didn't. So they had to go to their backups, and they had to recover from the backups and kind of piece everything together to get it back up and running again, which shows a couple of things. One, as large of a company as they are, and probably as large of an IT staff that they had certain gaps that they were missing and certain testing that they didn't provide for their company, which made them vulnerable, which made them susceptible to attack and to hack. One thing that we tell all of our clients, one thing that we push really hard, because we focus on the prevention of cybercrime, prevention of data loss, your data, your client's data. We want to make sure that that's secure and well. The only way to do that, the only way for the Colonial Pipeline to prevent, as well as the JBS meatpacking company, is to periodically, when we say quarterly, you run a network scan, a network audit, a security audit of everything that you have there that should have exposed, that says, hey, there's this VPN account out there. That person no longer works here. It's up and running invalid. We need to shut that down, because it's one more breach into our company's data, our company's network. It would be like you going out and hiring a locksmith to come in, installing deadbolts in all your exterior doors, and then forgetting to lock the front door, leaving it wide open for the people to come in. So in order to prevent that, you do a scan, you walk through the house and you check, is every door locked? You have a procedure that says, guess what? Every night before you go to bed, you walk around and check every single door, make sure it's locked. It's the same thing with cybersecurity prevention. You have to have procedures and policies in place that says, here's the things that you do on a regular basis, a checkbox, if you will. Anytime somebody leaves the company, you need to make sure that you go in and you disable them from the network. You disable them from VPN access. You disable them from their email, and so forth and so on. And it's really important to have those procedures in place. We here at Stryker Networks, that's what we do. We go through, we evaluate, we run a scan, we check your security. We come up with policies and procedures for you or for us to walk through on a regular basis to make sure everything is secure, everything is locked down. There's no open accounts. There's no passwords that are just 1, 2, 3, 4 or password 1, 2, 3, 4. We look at all of those things for our clients to make sure that they're secure. We do everything that we can to mitigate that loss. So that's what their problem was. They didn't spend the time, the energy, or the resources to check or bring in a third party like us to check and run scans to say, are there things out there that shouldn't be there, They're just kind of lagging behind. Now, I don't blame them. You have thousands of employees, maybe tens of thousands of employees, and you have to put some sort of technology in place that's going to manage and monitor that, so that you make sure that you don't leave that open, because what it does to a company and what it does to it financially and to its reputation is it's almost irrevocable. So let's talk again, one other scenario, which is actually even more recent, that happened after the Colonial Pipeline, was a JBS meatpacking hack. What they determined there was that it was a Russian cyber criminal group that was behind the attack. JBS is one of the largest meat processing companies. They have 150 plants in 15 countries, so huge. The company identified the ransomware attack, but they didn't disclose to anybody whether or not they paid any money to the hackers or the attackers. It was identified that the group Revile was one of the more prolific and profitable cyber criminal groups in the world. And most of its members are believed to be in Russia or countries that were formerly the Soviet Union. And we call them nation states. And what I mean by nation states, and when you hear that phrase nation states, that's where states like Croatia funds and is behind, or maybe even runs, these cyber criminal groups. They're in buildings like I'm in. I'm in a 5-story building, which houses a lot of different companies. They're in buildings like that. And I'll tell you why in just a few minutes. And their job is to go out and do two things. One, bring in revenue. And two, see if you can defeat certain systems of countries that you may not be friendly with, to see what the opportunities might be down the road to cripple them, right? So that's what a nation state is. That's when the country is behind the company that's doing all the hacking. It's also one of the group's best known attacks was on Apple Computer's supplier earlier this year, where the group went in and they posted on the dark web, which is a place to sell and transfer data and information, that they would release internal documents unless they received $50 million in ransom. Again, it's unsure whether or not they disclosed whether they paid that or not. Not sure, not really sure at all. So what's interesting is that there's so many different ways that cyber criminals can come in and attack and grab data from you. Remember, data is king. What I mean by that is, at some point, the country or the company that holds the most data is going to be the most powerful, because data houses every bit of information, every aspect of who you are, your spending, your accounts, everything that they have on you is all sitting in data somewhere. Facial recognition, whether or not they're going to allow you to get on a bus or not get on a bus if you have a criminal record. All these things are right around the corner, but it's all a collection of data. And the country that collects the most data is China, because China can do that for their own people. They can force their people to do this where other countries can't as much. Russia's probably number 2. US, because it's not so well known, probably has a large amount of data on us, but they don't make it very well known because we're supposed to be protected in our freedoms. It's hard to say. But the point is that, and then companies like Amazon, companies like Facebook and Google, they collect a lot of data and they can do a lot of things with that. Not bad things, but things where they can sell that data to companies who are going to market to you. Obviously, everybody has seen that 100 times. So it's local, it's international, and it's a focused effort on gaining access to people's data and information. So we always say it's not if, it's when. And what we mean by that is that everybody is going to be subjected to some type of attack or hack in some way, shape, or form. And it's getting really hard to prevent that. And we do everything that we can. We now have a 4-tier process that prevents it from coming in through your firewalls. Actually, we take it one step back and we prevent it from coming into your hosted URL or where your name is sitting. Then we stop it at the firewall, and then we stop it in the antivirus, anti-malware, anti-spyware software that sits on there. And then we test, and then we detect, and we remediate all the issues that we find. And we do that over and over, kind of a rinse and repeat, if you will, to try to stay one step or a half a step or some step in front of the attackers. But remember, it's similar to football, if you know anything about football, when there's a receiver and then there's somebody that covers the receiver. And it's hard for the person that's playing defense to cover the receiver because the receiver knows where that person is going to go. They know if they're what the route they're going to run. They know if they're going to go left or right. The person that's covering it has no idea. They just have to follow and look at motions on hips and shoulders and eyes to try to figure out which way they're going to go. So look at it as if the cyber criminals are the receiver. They know where they're going to go. They know what the programs are going to do. We're right behind them trying to figure out which way they're going to go and try to anticipate where they're going to go. And that's the same way where companies that provide antivirus and signature software to prevent ransomware, they're always trying to figure out who's jogging, where they're going, and all that. What usually happens is that somebody gets attacked somewhere. It could be the US, it could be overseas. The companies see that attack, they investigate it, they grab the information, they update their systems, and then we push it out to all of our clients, staying a step ahead of the wave that's coming, hopefully preventing it. So it's not easy. So it's going to be a matter of if, not if, but when. This is real life statistics as of this year. 76 of US businesses have experienced a cyber attack this year. And some of the bigger ones that you may have heard of is Target, Home Depot, Sony, Facebook, etc. Governments have been attacked. Police departments, villages, cities of gathering all the data or shutting them down, asking for a ransomware. That's generally what happens. But here's the interesting thing. You pay the ransom, they give you the encryption key. Let's say it works and it's all good. Tell me that they haven't grabbed a whole bunch of your data. Tell me that they're not going to take and resell that data on the dark web or reuse that data later on, a year from now, 2 years from now, where they might have accounts with usernames and passwords to be able to come back in and hit it again, get the ransomware in again, and start the whole game all over again. So it's an interesting way. It's a business model, if you will, for them to be able to do that. It usually happens by somebody making a simple little mistake, bringing some spyware or some worm program into the company's PCs, and then it filtrates and it runs throughout the entire network. What's come up recently with COVID is so many people working from home, we've lost, as an IT company, we've lost some of the prevention of the security part of the computer being separated from the network. And because of that, it makes it more subjective to be able to be attacked. So when they connect back to the network with a VPN, all of a sudden their programs start running. So we have to be very cognizant, very careful about all of that. And the costs are staggering. Just to give you some idea, cybercrime will cost the world about $6 trillion annually in 2020, in this year, 6 trillion with a T annually. That just shows you how much money is to be made out there. And this is what keeps the nation states and the hackers groups in business and hiring the best hackers possible, because it is an unbelievable business model. The average cost of a data breach for a company is about $3.29 million as of last year's statistics. That's usually what they pay out on average to the cyber criminals, and also pay to companies to go in and reset their computers, replace the hard drives, restore from backup, all the ancillary costs that are involved in that. So that's a lot for a company. Again, 73% of the US population will have some credentials found on the dark web. And I think I'm going to talk about the dark web next and give you an understanding of what that is. But 73% of people's data is usually for sale on the dark web. The question is, are you monitoring that? Do you have somebody that's monitoring to see if something pops up, a username, a password pops up on the dark web for sale? Are you monitoring in that? And then if you're being alerted to it, then you can go in and make some changes so that that password that was sold is no good anymore. That's what we do for our clients. Part of our cybersecurity is providing prevention from ransomware on the workstation side, on the server side, and on the network side. But we also do dark web scans for our clients, our managed service clients. And what that means is that anytime their information pops up on the dark web, we get alerted. The engineer looks at it, evaluates what's going on, gets back to the original owner, helps them change their password, helps them make some changes to prevent that information from being valid anymore. And that has to happen right away. So the minute it pops up, we see it, we go after it, we remediate it, and then we move on. You need to have that. If you don't have that in your company, you need to have that monitored for sure. So let's talk a little bit about what the dark web is. And we equate this to an iceberg. The top half of the iceberg, the part that you see, is where we all sit. That's where Google, Yahoo, Netflix, Facebook, Twitter, it all sits up in that area that we work in. Then there's a whole area below the water that's called the dark web. And this is where it's been used by nefarious people to be able to sell drugs and cyberarms and weapons, counterfeit security, identity, financial, medical information and identity, human trafficking, pedophiles, and terrorists all sit in the dark web. It's a whole group and organization to be able to profit from the loss of data or the selling of data of other companies. And this is where, as I mentioned earlier in the Colonial Pipeline, this is where they found some of their users' information and passwords sitting in the dark web. How long has it been there? I don't know. Who they sold it to, who purchased it, and all that, I don't know. But it's a marketplace for all of that. And if you're not, again, monitoring that and making sure that you don't pop up in there, and if you do, you nip it in the bud, if you will, you remediate it immediately so it doesn't happen. This is a very real place. This is a place where all those transactions happen. And again, you need to be aware of that. And we certainly do that for our clients, and we certainly help them and make them aware of that as well. So what can we do, and what can be done to help prevent some attacks? Respect your electronic data. Treat your data like gold, because it's worth gold. It's found in documents and scanned documents and photographs and voice recordings, and it's found everywhere. It's stored on desktops and laptops and portable devices and your phone and medical devices. It's all over the place. And you have to be cognizant of where it resides, how you access it, how you communicate with it, and how you secure it. Because that's the gold, that's the value. And when cyber criminals come in, they come in to encrypt all your data so you can't run your business. You pay the ransom so that you can get your data back, but then they extrapolate data all at the same time, that they go and resell again, or maybe hold you for ransom that says, hey, here's your decryption key, and that's great. You can use all your data now and everything works, but we're hanging on to a whole bunch of your data. We're going to release it for sale on the dark web if you don't pay us an additional ransom. It's quite an interesting business model, but again, you just need to be aware of what you're doing. And some of the areas that we talk about is that you never forward any of your electronic data to free emails through Gmail or Hotmail or Yahoo or AOL, which are hacked all the time. Not so much Gmail, but all the other ones have been hacked multiple times. And all that data that sits in your email accounts, that sits in files, including some areas of Gmail, other than G Suites, that you want to make sure that are not available. Sorry about that. Anyhow, you want to be cognizant. You don't want to be using that like that. You want to make sure that you use a good email system that encrypts your email, allows you to encrypt your email if you want to send specific files or specific information that's personal or medical related. You want to make sure that it's secure in that way, and you never ever want to mention any of your electronic data or your personal information, your real personal information on social media, because the cyber criminals are scanning that social media all the time, looking for information, looking for something about you so that they can socially engineer emails to your company or people in your company to be able to extrapolate money from them. I'm going to talk about that in just a few minutes here. And you should always follow whatever the email procedures are for your company. If you don't have email procedures, then please feel free to contact us. We'll help you put together all your procedures whether it's email, whether it's how you use and transfer and store data, all those things. You need to have something in place. So if you have an employee that's doing something that's going to put the company in jeopardy, at least you have something to fall behind where they signed off on, here's the specific ways that we can communicate and use our email services. So follow our policies. Also, here's interesting. Here's a little story. If you find a thumb drive, don't plug it into your computer. So several years back, there was an ASCII conference. ASCII is an association for IT professionals. We belong and join ASCII. So ASCII had a conference. We all showed up at the conference, a whole bunch of IT people from all over the country, and they had a whole bunch of speakers that were speaking different parts of security, and it's mainly security related. And I remember one speaker was up there talking about, I think, email security, and then walking around the room were 3 women dressed very nicely with these big wicker baskets, and they were walking around each person and putting a thumb drive down on each person's desk or table. And the thumb drive had a little logo on it, and we figured it's from the next speaker that's coming up. And so they walked around, didn't say a word, just smiled, and was giving everybody their thumb drives. And of course, at my table, half a dozen people grabbed the thumb drive, throw it in the laptop, because you know us IT people, we always have our laptop on, and we're beyond curious. They plug it in, they do all kinds, they're looking at it. I'm not sure what it was. I didn't even touch it. I left it sitting on the table in front of me. And then the next speaker comes on. They said, just so you know, everybody, we passed around thumb drives, and everyone that plugged a thumb drive in their computer, you now have a virus. And the whole room gasped. They're like, oh my gosh. And he says, actually, I'm just kidding. Here's my point. You think that you're in an area that's secure. You're at a conference where all we're talking about is security, but yet you still thought it was okay for somebody who didn't say anything, didn't have any logo, wasn't from any company. The thumb drive had a logo, but it didn't have a company name on it. It just had a logo on it. And you thought it was okay to pick that up and plug it into your computer. That's wrong. You need to be thinking a little bit differently. You need to be proactive. You need to look at that and say, I'm not touching that. I don't know what it is. I don't know what's on it. I found it in the parking lot. I found it walking down the hallway. I'm curious. I want to plug it in. Don't do that. Because you could plug it in, it could come up, it could be some pretty pictures or some real, interesting things, but in the background, it just installed some malware on your computer. And that malware is sitting there so that later on at night or later on that day when the network activity slows down, it goes out to the cloud, it downloads the big package, and that package starts encrypting all your files, ransomware, just because you plug something in. So the employee's responsibility is much greater than you think, and their training and their understanding needs to be done on at least an annual basis. So the rule is you find a thumb drive, you give it to somebody in IT. You do not plug it in, and you don't mess around with it, right? Because what happens, just like all malware, it's just like the Trojan horse of Troy. It looks good, it comes in, we like it, everything is fine. But what happens in the background is the bottom drops out and all these things happen and go out and start doing things to your network that something you don't want to do. The other thing that we need to talk about is where does it come in from? Phishing attempts, email phishing attempts is where the great majority of all ransomware comes in at. Now in the Colonial Pipeline case, it came in through an open VPN client that was not disabled, but many clients, many ones that we work with, they get an email that looks right, they click on something, and then they've downloaded the ransomware. So be suspicious of attachments to links. Make sure that you know where it's coming from. If you don't recognize where it's coming from in email, don't open it up. Make sure that if you see something in the subject line that's misspelled, or you see an email address that's a little weird, don't open it up. This is a bait and switch. But I will tell you is that the cyber criminals are very good at social engineering in email. And you need to be very careful and very specific in looking at your email that you're receiving. Look where it's from. If it's from an email that you don't recognize, or a Gmail account, or something that might be overseas, or a .ic or something that you don't recognize, just don't open it. Leave it alone. You look at the to. Who's it to? Who's it sent to? Is it sent to you? If it is the spelling of the name, your name, the at, and then the company's name, is that spelled right? We have a company that has 2 S's in their name. One of them was eliminated, and the email came out. It looks at first glance, it looks right, but it's misspelled. It's taken out as a letter, and so that was a bad email. You look at the hyperlinks, and this one is a hyperlink that goes to a bank. If you hover over it with your mouse, it'll appear the entire hyperlink. If that hyperlink has an address that has nothing to do with that bank, it's no good. Don't open it. Look at the date. Sometimes if it's sent overseas, you'll actually get an email today that was dated tomorrow because they're a day ahead. And it doesn't make any sense. How can you send something in the future? Well, because they're in the future. So it didn't come from somebody local, came somebody from somewhere else. Look at the subject line. Subject lines are usually weird. It could be something from FedEx or from whatever. It just there's something that the subject line that keys you that says, you know what, this looks weird. This doesn't look very good. I'm not going to open it. Make sure there's no attachments on it from an email that you're not expecting an attachment from. And if there is, certainly, please do not open it up, because all you're doing is opening up ransomware or some other malware to come into your system. And also look at the content. If the content looks kind of hokey, kind of weird, too personal, not business-like, whatever else, or some weird thing about some Nigerian prince who has money that they want to get, whatever that is, just leave it alone. Don't open it, because the majority of all ransomware comes from these type of emails, phishing emails. People fall for that. What we do for our company is part of our cybersecurity suite to make sure that everybody is secure. Is we use, and you can see at the bottom here, KnowBe4. KnowBe4 is a company that puts together a program that sends out fake emails to our clients. They look very real. Comes from Microsoft. Looks like it's from Microsoft. Hey, your email password expired. Click here to change it. You click there. It says, okay, put your old password in. Put your new one in. Repeat your new one. And then you hit OK. And it shows submitted. Like, great. That must have been from Microsoft. But it wasn't. What they did is that the cyber criminals just got your email address validated and your current password of what actively works with it. The new one that you put in is irrelevant. Nothing got changed because it wasn't from Microsoft. So you got to look at all that. So we do testing. If you were to fall for the testing or fall for a funky email, whatever that might is, it's going to pop up and it's going to say, this was a test from ABC company. This is an email you shouldn't have opened up. In the future, don't do that. It could link them to some additional training for that individual user. It also records it, so it goes back to who's ever monitoring it, IT department, CFO, the boss, whatever it is, that says, hey, this person did this. This person did this twice. This person's done this 5 times. Oh my gosh, this person's going to get us in trouble. They click on every single thing all the time. We need to have a conference call or a sit down with that person and explain to them why they shouldn't be doing what they're doing. And it's real important, because the more that you can train, the more that you can test and see the behavior of your individual people, the better off you're going to be to prevent cybercrime. Also, some of the ways they kind of sneak in is through Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and text. And they have you have a new voice message, click here for this. Hey, this is the IRS, or the Social Security. Somebody stole your Social Security number and you need to text here or click on this link. They'll never do that, just so you know. You will always receive something in the mail, potentially followed by a phone call. Phone call never comes first from the IRS. It never comes first from Social Security. You're always notified via mail, and then maybe a call. They generally ask you to call them. And then you call the Social Security Department, or you call the IRS, whatever it might be. All those are scams. They scam in email, they scam in text, they scam in voice messages all the time. I had one time where I got a call saying, this is so-and-so agent from the IRS, and I have you on a recorded line. You failed to pay blah, 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 blah. I have a judge standing by to adjudicate your case. Are you willing to do that? And I knew what it was as a former police officer and being involved in all that. I said, yeah, I want to get this straightened out. What do I need to do? Well, you need to go to, believe it or not, Walgreens. You need to buy one of these cards. It's like a gift card kind of thing. You need to put $2,500, $45, whatever it was, on that card right away, and then submit and call us back. Give us the card information, all that, so that that's a form of payment to the IRS. If you do that, I'll get you on the phone with the judge. We'll adjudicate it, and it'll all be dropped. I'm like, okay, so I'm going to go do that. So I went, and I didn't do anything. I said, hey, I got the card. Oh, great. I go, hey, by the way, what's your badge number? And he gave it to me right away, which was pretty impressive. I thought that might throw him. And I said, so you have the judge on the phone with me? And then the judge came up. Both of them had a little bit of a foreign accent, by the way. And then they said, okay, what's your number? And I gave him some number. And then they said, hold on a minute. And they said, well, that's not a valid number. I said, that's because this is not a valid call. You're not from the IRS. You're not a judge. You're just trying to scam me. And I said, better luck next time. And by the way, I brought the FBI into this, and this is all being recorded, and we're going to be knocking on your door. Because what they told me is it says, if you didn't adjudicate this, we're going to send the local police department over to your house to arrest you. And just so you know, the local police department does not work with the federal government. They will never come over and arrest you for anything that's federally related. They have no affiliation, no nothing, and they don't have the jurisdiction to be able to do that. So that's a bunch of BS. So if you ever get involved in that, a bunch of BS. Don't fall for it. They also do business emails that say, hey, click here for the updated vacation policy. Hey, click here for your Corona stimulus check. Hey, click here for your FedEx tracking. I mean, there's a million different ways that the phishing emails come in that make you want to react. Oh, we couldn't deliver a package to you. Click here for a link to do that. And you know, if you hover over the link, it's not a FedEx link. It's not a UPS link. Don't touch it. Don't go over it. And the reason I'm spending so much time on this is the number one way that companies get hacked and get ransomware. Very important to be very diligent about what you do and train your users. One of the most important parts of cybersecurity insurance, you say, oh, I have cybersecurity insurance, I'm all covered. If you read what it says, because we have to help clients fill out all that information, and it says that I train every employee within 1 year of employment. Some say 6 months of employment on cybersecurity and cybersecurity training. We do this, we do that, we do regular scans, we remediate, we detect, we respond, we remediate. The thing is that if you don't do that, if something happens and they're going to ask for proof. Oh, you train everybody? You train them every 6 months? Show me the training PowerPoint. Who trains you? And give me a list of all the people that attended. Oh, we don't have that. Sorry, you're in violation. We're not going to pay out. And it goes on and on and on. So be really careful about that. You have to do what they're asking you to do, because the insurance company's number one priority is to never pay you a dime. So if they can find a reason not to have to do that, they're going to do that. Again, you're going to get stuff from Microsoft, from Chase Bank, Ring. I mean, everywhere you're going to get emails. Be very, very careful about what you respond to and what you don't respond to. And then there's certain domains where they do some spoofing on, where it looks like it comes from the CDC or Social Security or right from LinkedIn. Spoofing is a whole nother subject that we could talk about. But again, there's usually something within that email content that just doesn't look right. If it doesn't look right, don't respond. If it's important enough, somebody will get a hold of you eventually, right? So again, don't click on any links. Be suspicious of everything. Don't fall for the scams the best that you can, and notify your IT department immediately. When something's happening, we as an IT company, we need to know about it right away, so we can go through our process to try to remediate and stop whatever might be going on out there from a filtering standpoint or whatever else. And also, if you go to a website and all of a sudden your computer pops up and says it's infected, click here to scan everything. Absolutely do not click on that, because there's no website that will recognize, Microsoft will not recognize that you have a problem. Microsoft will not call you and say, hey, we noticed that you have all kind of viruses and malware on your computer, and we need to remote into that and clean that up. What's your phone number, or I mean, what's your email address, blah, blah, blah. Then they'll send you something to a link. You'll click on the link, they'll remote in the computer, like, oh, great, I got Microsoft remoting in my computer. They run a scan. It's just a fake scan with a list of all these things. And they're going to say, well, we can remediate all this for you for $49.95. So give us your credit card information, and we'll take care of this right away for you. You'll be good to go. We'll take you off of our list, and you'll be noted as cleaned. And then, especially older people, they'll file for it. They'll give them all their credit card information. They will charge them the $49.95. They will appear as if it's scanned, but they also have your credit card information, which they go and they have a whole system of buying things and doing things or selling it on the dark web as a pretty high valued card because it just got it, which means it's good for a little bit, which somebody's going to pay a lot of money for it to go out and start making a whole bunch of purchases. Don't do any of that stuff. Don't fall for any part of that because Microsoft will never, ever, ever call you on the phone ever. They very rarely would ever email you because they have no idea what your email address is. And they won't try to run any scan. They have no way of detecting whether or not you have infections or not at all whatsoever. That's all a bunch of baloney. Okay. So our goal at Stryker Networks is to make sure that we break the chain. Just like a chain, if you have a link that we can break, so make sure that whatever's happening stops from proliferating the entire network. That's our main goal. Stop it, unplug it, do whatever you need to do to stop what's going on. So again, if you think you've been hacked, you think you have a problem, stop working immediately, unplug your computer, notify the IT department, and just make sure that you don't fall along the scam. If you do, please do us a favor, divulge everything that you did. Say, yes, I let them in my computer. Yes, I let them run a scan. All that information is very helpful for us because it helps us find those gaps, those areas that they came in and shut them all down 100%. If you say, oh, I was going to click on something, but I thought it was bad, we'll look at it and say, great, you didn't click on it. It is bad. Don't worry about it. But really, you did. Now something's running in there. We're not really aware of that all the time. Hopefully, we have protocols in place to be able to prevent that, but it's not always 100%. So please, communicate with your IT department. Please give us all the information. It'd be very, very helpful for us. Just so you know that 81% of all the hacking related breaches are leveraged because of passwords, weak passwords that are stuck in the back of a computer or a Post-it note. I was at how can I say this? I was at a place getting some work done. And one person was working on the computer and they had to open up a certain application, but they didn't have the password. So they had to go get somebody else to say, hey, what's the password for this? The person comes in and says, here, spin the monitor around, the passwords are all right here. And so that is a big, huge no-no because I'm a patient, if you will, coming in. I was in that room alone. I could have looked around the back of that, snapped a picture of it, copied all the information. Now I have some valid passwords, probably for their entire network. Not to mention, if I get in there because they're a healthcare provider, I can potentially get some personal health information of other people, which is completely against the law. So make sure that you have a password policy in place. All of our clients, we make it very specific that they need to implement a password policy. What I mean by that is that you're forced to change your password every 90 days. Some of them are every 60 days, depending on what their compliance says that they have to be. And they hate that. They're like, I have so many passwords, I can't remember it. If I change it every 90 days, people are going to be locked out all the time, blah, blah, blah. I understand that. I get that. But I got to tell you, it's one of the number one ways of losing all your data, which is worse. Having the frustration, the aggravation of having to change your password and remember it, or having all your data compromised as a company and not being able to recover whatsoever. So it's real important. Use passphrases. Passphrases are easy to remember. Something like my dog has fleas 32. You'll remember that phrase. I know it's a lot to type, but if you put a phrase in like that, the ability to be able to hack that password, even though it seems really simple, because of the dashes, because of the phrase, because of the length, because of the number at the end, it makes it very difficult for somebody to hack that password. and something that you can remember. So things like that. There are other softwares where you can manage your passwords, and we can talk about that if you have any questions. Compliance, and we do a lot with compliance. There's a lot of companies that we work with that are in healthcare, in financial, or just need to be in compliance with their manufacturers. And so we audit, we remediate the gaps, we find the gaps, the problems, we remediate them. And then we also present them a set of policies and procedures that they can implement for their companies so that it keeps them in line with compliance. And compliance requires that. Now, nobody will ever be 100% compliant because the agencies that handle the compliance are always changing, but you can be more compliant. You can be in line with the compliance. And if something happens and there's a lawsuit or something's going on, or if a manufacturer or a large company that you're trying to get business from says, hey, are you in compliance with NIST, which is the National Institute of Standards and Technology? Are you HIPAA compliant? Are you SEC compliant? Because they can't do business with you if you're not. And if you are, you have to show that you are. And then you have to, on a regular basis, whether it's every 3 months or 6 months, you have to do a network audit, a security audit, and a compliance audit to make sure that you note any changes that happened from the time before, and add that in to continue to grow your compliance. Very, very important. Because what happens on compliance violations is, especially on the HIPAA side, there's a HIPAA wall of shame. Those are medical facilities that were breached, where the patient health information was sold on the dark web, where they had to notify the HIPAA agency that they've been breached. HIPAA, they come in, do an evaluation, and they come in and say, okay, great, here's all the things that you need to do, or maybe you've already fixed all of them after the fact, basically locking the front door after they've already been burglarized. And they say, because of that, now here's the fine that you're going to pay for that. And guess what? You get to go on the wall of shame. So you're paying a fine. You have your target on your back from the HIPAA compliance. You're listed in front of all your peers that you are in violation, and all your patients. Anybody can go to that site and look at it, say, oh, I don't know if I want to be, be in this doctor's building or the part of this doctor's group because they were breached, and my data could be out there somewhere. You don't want that to happen. Also, as the end user that created that situation to where there's a breach, i.e. phishing email, you're subject to discipline, termination, and criminal prosecution, as well as criminal prosecution for the company. So you as an end user have a very high level of responsibility when it comes to preventing cybercrime. And to be complicit with that is not a good thing when it comes to court. So, oh, by the way, doctors can, and attorneys for sure, can lose their licenses to practice law, to practice medicine. That's their livelihood. That's it, because of one employee. So it's really important. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just bringing up the awareness to understand what's going on and what's out there. One of the things that happens if you are to be breached is, can you continue to survive as a company? If all your data was hacked, you can't afford to pay the ransomware, you don't have good backup recovery, you don't have good business continuity plan in place to continue to run your business, and you shut down, what is that going to look like? Can you handle the fees, the fines that might be involved? Can you handle the audits and the investigation, which, by the way, you have to pay for? Any lawsuits or judgments, loss of clients, reputation. Oh my gosh, you spend all this time on your reputation and it can be shot down because you did something you weren't willing to proactively pay for or put in procedures in place to prevent or to mitigate this. Even if you were attacked and you had all these things into play, that says a lot for your reputation and for lawsuits and all that you've done everything feasibly possible on a regular basis that's asked to do, best practices, but you still had a breach. People will understand that it's harder to get a judgment for somebody who's trying to do the right thing all the time. You don't want to lose your license, your professional, your ethics, all that kind of stuff, right? So Warren Buffett says it takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it. If you think about that, you'll do things a little bit differently. As a company, and when it comes to procedures and policies, if you realize all the time that you put together to build your reputation, to have it taken away from you is horrible. And if you know ahead of time and raise the awareness to say there's things that you can do to prevent that, I would highly suggest that you do that, right? Just kind of a little checklist is you want to make sure that you have good backups, both online and offline. Make sure that you strengthen your home network and people that work from home and their computers, make sure there's antivirus, anti-malware, spyware, malware protection on those local machines because they're now detached from the network. Make sure everybody uses and enforces strong passwords. Keep all your software up to date, your operating systems up to date. Again, that can all be done through technology. Manage your social profile, social media profiles, so that you're not putting too much information in there. Less is better. Check all the privacy and security settings on your network and your computers. The only way you can do that is through a network audit and a security audit, to have a third-party software look at everything from a 30,000 view and then dig down to all the small stuff and only present you the problems. Instead of you having to go and try to find the problems, it tells you here's where the problems are at. Very important. We do that for all of our clients. And just avoid the suspicious emails and the attachments and all the other stuff that we talked about in length, right? So let me ask you a question. Can you answer these questions? Do you have cyber insurance, and will it pay out if you suffer attacks similar to the Colonial Pipeline? You need to ask yourself, if it took Colonial Pipeline 5 days to come back online, how long will it take you if you're down or attacked? How long would you be down? How long would your business be offline before you can come back online? And what's that going to cost you, right? What is the actual cost of the downtime? You should do a calculation on that. If I was out of business, if I couldn't get access to any of my data, any of my inventory, health information for our clients, or scheduling information, if I lost all of that for a period of time, how long would I lose it for? What's my recovery process? And what's that going to cost me? Not just to recover it, but all the downtime. Will I lose clients? Will something happen? You have to ask yourself all those questions. And then, do you have enough information to make a rational decision on your network? Are you smart enough from an IT standpoint, or do you need to bring in somebody else like Stryker Networks to come in, evaluate, look at, help you understand, help you come up with a game plan, a roadmap to be able to secure your network holistically from all aspects of it, to prevent your business from being attacked and being down, right? Are you compliant with all government regulations? And are you compliant within the deadlines that are put forth with that? And can you prove it? You can say, yes, I do this. Yes, I do that. Like my example of training your end users. Yes, we did all that. Good. Show me the PowerPoint presentation. Show me who presented it. What date and time did it happen? And show me the list of the people that participated. So you need to be able to prove it. They're not just going to take your word for it. And is your network properly backed up and protected? And are you sure? Oh, we have backup software. I think it's being backed up. I'm pretty sure we're secure. I'm pretty sure everything is okay. We hear this all the time. I said, but do you know? Is your current IT provider or your IT people showing you that here's the testing, here's the checks, here's the backup? By the way, we're recovering on backup. We're spinning up your servers off-site to make sure they all come up perfectly if something were to happen to your on-premise servers. What are your procedures? What are your practices? Is it weekly, monthly, yearly, whenever we feel like it? You need to make sure that you know where you stand with that before something happens. So some of the things that we say to take action is I would highly recommend and suggest that you have a deep scan of your network and your security by a company like Stryker Networks. We'll be happy to come out and do that, to show the gaps, to show the vulnerabilities, to highlight or shine a light on all the problem areas, and then give you a systematic procedures to remediate. Here's the high priority. Here's the next priority. These aren't high priority, but maybe within the next year you should do that, so that you have a roadmap and a guide to be able to protect your network. We need to perform a baseline. So here's where you stand. Here's where you want to be, and here's why, and here's what we need to do to help you get there. And also, if you're in an area that requires compliance, we can provide a full compliance scan, which would incorporate the network scan, the security scan, policies, procedures, and give you a roadmap to security, and then prove it. If an agency comes in to do a audit on you, you give them the documentation. Here's the things that we're doing. Here's how it falls along with the compliance. Here's our policies, procedures, all that kind of stuff. We can also, if you have an in-house IT company or IT people, I'm sorry, we can come in and supplement them by, as a third party, coming in and look at and audit all your information, coming up with recommendation report, coming up with compliance reporting as well. Also, the big thing on the cyber risk management plan that we present and put forward with everyone is looking at detection, prevention. So we have to scan, detect, remediate, and then do something to prevent it. We need to make sure that you have a continuity plan. Can your business continue to run if this were to happen? If so, what's the plan? How does it work? Who does what first? Who does what second? What are the 5 things that we need to do, and in what order? We put that together for you. We help you with that. We also do continuous scans every 6 months, every 3 months when it comes to compliance and when it comes to network auditing. So for our clients, if you're a part of our managed services clients, every 3 months, we schedule a meeting with you and or your IT person, and we go over all the scans, what we found out, what it showed, where the gaps are, things that happened since last time, and then talk about how we're going to remediate it or how you're going to remediate it, whatever that is. It brings up the awareness. It shines a light in those dark spots to show the gaps. And so we do that on a regular basis to help you stay compliant. And then we help also with doing that, put you in line with your cybersecurity, cyber liability insurance, which we also can help you with that and guide you in the direction for protecting your network. And because things happen and you need to have insurance, something you don't want to pay for, but something that you need to have, because if something were to happen, you need something to help mitigate the costs of recovery for that. So that being said, if you have any questions, I believe there's a chat or a question area to be able to ask questions. If not, please feel free to email me. My email address is right here. It's mgreen@strykernetworks.com. My direct phone number is 847-380-7503. And also, if you want to go to this link, there's a self checklist, which I believe, if I'm not mistaken, everybody's going to get an email after this thanking you for attending our webinar, and that link will be in there. If you click on that, it asks, I don't know, a half a dozen questions, maybe a dozen questions, general questions to help us evaluate a little bit from a high level the protection or the security of your network to the best of your ability. It allows us to compile something to have a conversation with you, to go over and review of what we think that we can provide for you in the way of helping you protect your network. That's our goal. Our goal is to help you protect your network, help it be monitored through technology, help you scan, detect, remediate, and then rescan again to make sure that you're in compliance, make sure that your network is secure, and things like the Colonial Pipeline doesn't happen to your individual companies. Because if you think you're too small, why would they want to come in and attack us? We have nothing of value. Well, you do. Because if you lost all your data to encryption, they're going to be able to get a ransom for you. Very seldom do people say, I'm not paying anything. I don't care if I lose all my data, I'll start from scratch. That doesn't happen very often. So usually what people do is they pay it. Now, they're not going to pay $4.5 $1 million in ransom. It's going to be much, much smaller, but it's still, in relation to your business, it's still a lot of money. And you have to go in and fix everything. And you have to always worry about, are they still in there? Is there malware still sitting in here? Because we try to fix it ourselves and we're thinking we're good, but what's to say it doesn't happen 6 months from now, right? So again, if you have any questions, if you like Stryker Networks to come and evaluate and do an audit of your network, have a conversation with us. We'll be happy to talk to you, lead you down the right path, answer your questions, and guide you wherever we can. So that's the conclusion. I'll see if I can figure out how to get to any questions or answers that you might have, answer any questions that you might have, I should say. And I hope that you found this webinar valuable, both interesting, hopefully. I'm not the most interesting person, but I do the best I can. And also really help you understand and raise the awareness of what's going on in the world, how it can affect you as a company, how it can affect your reputation, and just let you know there are things that can be done to help prevent that. And we here at Stryker Networks would love to work with you. And so give us a call. Thank you. I hope everybody has a great day. And we'll have other of the webinars down the road. You'll be notified of that. So thanks a lot. Have a good day, and we'll see you all later.